is really the role of the media. What's the media doing? We've talked about trust. We've talked about these elements. Will voters, through this period of time, the 18 midterms and into the 2020 presidential election, will it be an economic decision ultimately, just like most races have been? Forget Russia and bots and analyticas and Facebook and all these things. But at the end of the day, people are going to walk in and say, you know what, we're a little better off than we were to go back 4 years ago. I'm going to stick with who took me to the dance. But
you mentioned media. If you see it at the national level, you talk about paying attention to the economy, but there can be something on North Korea and you can still be talking about the latest.
Well, I think that's my point, though. The media is talking about
foreign event, a lot of anxiety.
Well, you mean the media is focused on
Well, the media is
extremists.
focused on, an endless discussion, rightfully or wrongfully, about Russian influence in elections in the United States. But at the end of the day, I walk in and go, I don't know about Russian influence in the United States. I care about the fact that
Stormy Daniels.
Is anyone going to decide an election on?
They've already not decided.
Right.
No one's surprised by it. But the media can't get off it.
Yeah, this is despite all the evangelicals on television and Pat Robertson's mansion and all that stuff. The fact is, the country is increasingly tolerant of certain kinds of behavior. I think the majority of people don't give a damn, frankly. I mean, they knew that Trump is a scoundrel. They've known that Trump was I used to cover Trump too, by the way. They know he's a scoundrel, and I'd say the majority of Americans don't really care.
Did they know that Bill Clinton was a scoundrel to some degree, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Nothing
it wasn't
like
a secret.
Trump, but yeah, same idea.
Yeah.
Jim? What's happened at the presidential level is that there used to be sort of a standard that a president or a candidate for president wouldn't do. That was beneath the presidency. And what's happened over time is that our political leaders have become like celebrities. And you remember remember what a big deal it was when Bill Clinton went on Arsenio Hall's show and played the clarinet? It was like, oh my God, a candidate for president's on nighttime TV. Now it's now you got to go see, all the nighttime shows. So what's happened is that wall that used to exist, which had different standards, is broken down. And I'm not saying this is, like we're going to all dial an 800 number to decide our president, but there's a blurring of those lines now, and I think that, I think some people will want a more steady, but I think they might want that in the vice president. I do think we like celebrities and we like to be entertained, not necessarily governed by our president.
But I think this guy is so extreme in the undignified department that I think that, these things have cycles, obviously, and I think we're going to want somebody more dignified. And, when people think about it, it's just amazing. The president of the United States is sort of a semi-king. He's head of state as well as head of the government. And, generally, I think, even though there's much more tolerance for crazy behavior than there used to be, and sometimes depraved behavior, generally, I think most Americans want the president to be a role model. For the kids, if not for us, we're so depraved it's too late. But for the country in general, role model, and maybe not going back to Eisenhower, but something a little more respectful. And I think there will be a craving for this. I think that because I talk to a lot of kids, my own and others, and I hear this. Is that,
So we went from a president who could read beautifully off a teleprompter. But nothing else. Everything's off teleprompter.
Yeah, he was lost without the teleprompter. Yeah.
To someone who tweets the most bizarre, random, impulsive thoughts.
Yeah.
It's the whipsaw. And so I would imagine, as Bob said, the next one will be moderate.
John Hickenlooper of Colorado, the governor of, maybe someone like that, quite prim and
Well, with
proper.
new sports betting, you'll be able to bet on.
I'm in 100% in sports betting.
We've talked a lot about the New York Times and the Boston Globe and CNN, but there's a major transformation in media in the United States with things like Sinclair Media becoming a major source of information across the country. It's going to be one of the leading sources of local news. Clearly has, I think, unforgivingly stated that it's going to have an angle to its ideologically to its content and has embedded that content. What does that mean for America? What does it mean for campaigns? What does it mean for Rhode Island?
I mean, I think it's, again, I think people tend to see through things. I think they watch Fox, they know what they're getting. They watch CNN, they know what they're getting. They watch a Sinclair station, they know what they're getting.
It's a little different, though. First time it's really hit the local television, which historically had a high trust ratio, that there was an ideology to the fire.
That viral video of all the newscasters saying the same scripted thing, all played over again. I mean, people turned to those people because they thought they were their local, trusted, unbiased. So that meshing of it, they don't understand when they hear that little script if they didn't hear the other.
Is there a
80
local
newscasters
TV
say the
station
same thing.
that doesn't do a promo that says, "We're trusted, we're the most trusted, we're local and trusted"?
How well will these places do in the long run if they become local echo chambers like NSNBC and the left and Fox and the right and so on? This will be very interesting because people here have said the local TV stations, I think, generally have been trusted in most of the major markets as pretty responsible purveyors of local news. You know, the commentary, well, of course, I remember not that long ago when they also had editorialists would come out and say something bland, you know, like a particularly boring newspaper editorial. They'd come out and read it. Usually the guy would be wearing a bow tie and, you know, well, glasses kind of like that. But,
Were you a media consultant to them?
Yeah, oh,
Jim,
absolutely.
how big is
That's
this
gonna
for the
change,
Republicans going into the midterm? And
On this
on
media?
Sinclair, on this.
No, I agree that I think it's pretty transparent. You know, if you go to an Italian restaurant, you're going to get Italian food. So I think, you know, I think people know what they're going to get and they self-select. And, you know, I
The number of
it's
people who watch
self-reinforcing.
local news is so much smaller than it was even
Yeah.
5 years ago. I mean, there are probably more people in this room than will watch 11 o'clock local newscast tonight on a network affiliate. I mean, you have to look at the number. Oh, sorry. Are they here? It's staggering how few people actually watch like the 11 o'clock news at night.
fragmentation of where people are getting their news from, that bodes well for GoLocal Prov.
Listen.
So I think that, I think the future is where you are. I don't, you know, and I just think that people will will form their own opinions on what they think is a relatively unbiased source. And I do agree that people will feel that a New York Times or a Boston Globe or, you know, will have a higher bar before they'll print something. But they'll say, but it's liberal, you know, so.
Is it actionable information? I mean, that's why I used to work for the Wall Street Journal, and the whole thing was, it's actionable. You can trade a stock based on that information. So I think in the long run, the places are going to succeed have, you know, actionable information. They aren't right all the time, but, you know, they're reliable. You can make a decision. Getting back to these local stations, though, I'm a little concerned of the sort of the echo chamber, the reinforcement. You know, you just go listen to stuff that agrees with you, because of course hearing another point of view is anxiety provoking. So I'm very concerned that there's going to be more of that at the local level too.
Some people I know, they log on, they read Fox News, and they go to Huffington Post and figure the truth somewhere in the middle. You know, and then the truth somewhere in the middle.
And you know, the TV news, I mean, I was listening to a commercial the other day, a radio commercial, and it was talking about a news station in Boston, and we get up at 2 a.m. to start. And they go on the Globe website.
That's right.
It's absolutely true.
And so they figure out from that what's important to report on. So that's, you know, the morning news, everything is according to this morning's Globe.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean after the weather, after the traffic?
Yeah.
Still, after all these years, that's still
It's
true.
still.
Well, much to
The
our
major metros set the agenda.
Much to our peers' agitation about 9 months ago, we blocked all their Twitter feeds and said, at least if you're going to learn something from GoLocal, at least we're going to get a page view out of it, come to the site, but you're not going to be able to.
Incredibly frustrating
Yeah.
that the Globe newsroom is feeding the newsroom of every broadcast media out in the
And
city.
that's the last question. Then we're going to go to Q&A. You know, in this market, we have a very vibrant series of news organizations. We're an aberration. There are not many GoLocals. There's not a significant all digital platform in most cities and communities. You're seeing massive numbers of newspapers close around the country in a very good economy. What's going to happen in most cities and towns in the next 5 years, there will be no daily newspaper. What's that going to do? I call it the great opportunity. If you are a corrupt politician, you cannot wait for this day.
When you consider, early in my career, I was a reporter for the Patriot Ledger in Quincy. There are about 125 people in the newsroom. Every city and town on the South Shore of Massachusetts had at least 2 reporters, if not 3 reporters, that covered the towns. They have nothing now. It is easy pickings if you're a politician. You can have people walk in with bags of cash if you so choose. There is no one watching the store at all, and it's bad. That's a very bad dynamic because if no one's attending, public works meetings or planning board meetings, they have nobody attending this stuff, and it's very, very dangerous because you can do whatever you want to do.
Kate, we broke a couple stories in Cranston about a zoning change for a Cumberland Farms. The judge of the town was the lawyer for the Cumberland Farms, giving out donations. I mean, it was as convoluted a mixed up mess as you could possibly.
If that happens in Cranston, it's happening
Everywhere.
absolutely.
It's happening
It's
everywhere.
absolutely everywhere. And I was up at the State House this afternoon. Another piece GoLocal did. We were looking for an ethics forum for the Coventry town manager when there were some issues with the big developer there. Ethics said, we'll look for it, and they couldn't find it. They literally had no idea whether this man had filed it or not. Again, that's just a Coventry situation. This is just a Rhode Island with 39 cities and towns. The ability to be able to pick through that is incredibly necessary if nobody knew this guy was giving donations, if no one knew this guy was skating through. So, yeah, the bags are cash. That's a scary prospect.
Let's go
What's
to
the replacement?
Let's go to Q&A. Can I grab a mic?